So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Nobara Kujisaki. So let's start the series. Everyone was at peace during the middle of night. There was no work-related stress, no problems while they slept, and most significantly, there were no crying infants that might likely rupture your eardrums and cause more brain jarring than a car accident that would cause a concussion. Well, except for a select handful. A stunning woman, drenched in perspiration, lay on a bed with two infant boys in her arms. A blond man with a joyful grin and an elderly woman looked down at her with joy, and she clapped her blood-soaked hands together. The elder woman says, "My goodness, Kushina, you have two healthy boys," with joy on her face as she looks down at the now mother of two. Kushina Gojo, the mother, chooses to gaze down at her two kids with adoration and love instead of responding. However, reality stared back into her dazed violet eyes, two pairs of realities actually, two healthy, hearty boys wailing at the top of their lungs, and boy did they have a pair of them. She had never imagined becoming a mother, not with her vast amounts of cursed energy and the cursed chains technique that she had been born with. She had swiftly become a key sorcerer in elevating her clan's prestige above their rival clans, the Zenin and Kumo, for those very reasons. They sensed it when he was born, the unique techniques that were so highly regarded within the Gojo clan. Their hope, pride, and joy, their prayers answered, their ace in the political race for power above the clans, and the boy blessed with the 6 eyes and limitless, the first in 400 years. The first twin had white hair and a pale complexion to go with it. They were unable to determine the color of the eyes because they were so tightly closed, but they could guess. The second of the pair, however, was an exception to them. He was born with his mother's white hair and his father's blonde hair, and his two-toned hair blended together like the sun and moon during an eclipse. He also had a tan complexion, which he inherited from his father. Like his twin, the eyes were invisible and they were unable to guess the color because the techniques that were brought forth within him felt like the 6 eyes and limitless, but there was an undertone that suggested something much more sinister. As a result, the adults in the room could only draw one conclusion. The boy's 6 eyes and limitless had changed, giving the world access to a new, cursed technique that no one else had ever had. Kushina, however, didn't care. All that mattered to her was that they were her sons and she was their mother. The blonde Minato asked his wife, "What will you name them?" They had previously decided that she would name them because she had endured the agony of those 9 terrible months and because he had been whipped as well, but that particular detail is not as very significant. After giving it a lot of thought, Kushina finally woke up and returned to reality. Naruto and Satoru, Naruto for our firstborn and Satoru for our second, was the name she had decided to give her children. "Spit it out already. Why are you looking at me like I messed up?" Minato said, his fish-eyed gaze fixed on his wife for a long time, making her uncomfortable. When Kushina appeared to be about to lose it, he finally spoke. Minato asks, "Did you just name our firstborn son?" "Fish cake," in a whispery but confused tone. Kushina immediately earned a tick mark and her fiery side entered the argument, saying, "It's Maelstrom, you idiot." In case you were wondering, the twins' crying did not stop during that episode. With the development of both the 6 eyes and limitless appearing in Satoru, as well as the new techniques ingrained in Naruto, 9 years passed quickly, and life had become even more complicated for the family of 4. They were closely watched, especially with their new glistening titles as the twin prodigies revealed their technique to the rest of the Jujutsu, which was also revealed to them by the young prodigy himself. The Eyes of Frenzy and Eternal Chaos are 2 of Naruto's techniques that are both incredibly similar and yet very different from the original Gojo trademarks. The Eyes of Frenzy is the result of a mutation that occurred to the 6 eyes, which allows the user to comprehend anything that has a negative origin or negative energy. Another difference is the effects of looking into Naruto's eyes versus Satoru's. Satoru's six eyes makes you feel as though an abyss of pressure is placed on your shoulders, bearing the weight of infinity, but the eyes of frenzy made you witness every nightmare and depressing aspect of the world, every negative aspect of reality, and drew you into the basic elements that comprise cursed energy itself. His second technique, Eternal Chaos, focuses on a different, potentially infinite aspect of the world. Unlike Limitless, which enables the wielder to harness infinity itself, Eternal Chaos gives the user the ability to control and harness the infinite amount of negative energy that surrounds them along with its associated properties. Overpowered as it is, it has drawbacks. Infinity is the neutral divider of things, representing the balance between offense and defense, whereas chaos is meant to be the pure offensive drive that breaks and destroys everything in its path, leaving nothing but ashes and ruin in its wake. As a result, while it makes Naruto an absolute demon in terms of attack prowess, it leaves little room for protection. Because of these two tactics, Naruto became feared by the entire clan. Despite being Satoru's brother, they shunned him and regarded him as if he were the worst thing that could happen to them. They labeled him the Gojo's black sheep, though Satoru frequently protests that this is not the case. Satoru once told him, "You're not a black sheep, Narubro," which made him very happy and calm. However, that soon turned into irritation and childish rage, and he said, "You're more like a wolf in sheep's clothing." Yes, no, they soon got into a fight with fists and techniques, and everything, at least until their mother arrived with her hair blazing and her fists soaring. Naruto was still in excruciating pain on his ass, and the spanking he received was particularly cruel. Naruto couldn't help but smile as he walked down memory lane. Although he was viewed as an outsider by the clan, this didn't alter the fact that his family still loved him. In fact, he loved them more than anyone else in the world. Because of them, or rather their help and support, he also gained strength. Naruto had to learn his special techniques from scratch and use them to create other techniques because he had to learn a lot about cursed energy. His brilliant mind allowed him to quickly understand the basics of manipulating cursed energy, and he even learned how to use Black Flash, though he has only used it twice so far. Naruto never saw a shadowy figure creep up behind him as he moved through the deserted hallways of his fortress, their eyes intent on their objective. Boo! Kaya! In an instant, Naruto was on the ceiling, clutching the wooden plank like a body pillow and clinging to it with both hands and legs to stay in place. His amber eyes, which glowed like a fiery flame, danced around the room below him, searching for the person who had frightened him. When his gaze fell on a white-haired boy who was rolling on the ground and laughing so loudly that Naruto nearly thought it was a horn, Naruto screamed, "Satoru Ushit!" as he released his grip on the rafter and fell to the ground, still gazing at his asthmatic brother. "I swear to everything out there I will make you pay for this," he said. Holy crap, Naru, I never knew you were a bitch." Satoru, still laughing, wheezed and pointed to the angry brother who had been horribly pranked. "Wait till everyone hears about this, they're gonna be you." Satoru was immediately silenced when Naruto's fist landed in his face, cursed energy flowing through it as the white-haired boy was sent flying by the fiery golden aura. Unfortunately for the resident fish cake, Satoru had his newly acquired infinity up, fully anticipating the subsequent attack. It is not hyperbole to say that the two brothers were praised as prodigies despite the disparity in their treatment. Satoru only learned how to use his infinity correctly last week, and he fell in love with the technique right away. After all, anything that could deflect Naruto's chaos-infused blows had to be fantastic. Unfortunately, it didn't work on his mother. After all, motherly fury is the most powerful weapon in the world. You can't get me. Watch me. You may be asking yourself why these two 9-year-old boys are using profanity so much. The solution is straightforward. Without a second thought, the twins slid in front of the enraged mother who was prepared to exterminate them from the world into Goza position. but raised to their highest as they cried for the beating they were about to receive. You ing brats, how many times have I told you to stop fighting? Screamed Kushina, her red hair waving menacingly as golden chains flowed around it. We're sorry. Huge tears streamed down Naruto's and Satoru's faces as they urged for pity against their mother while keeping their heads down on the ground. Kushina's face simply twitched, covered in tick marks, as she fought the impulse to punish them with 1,000 spanks. Never mind that, go to your rooms and get ready, we have a meeting with the elders we have to get to, Kushina said with a sigh and a shake of her head. The two boys looked up at her, their faces filled with confusion. Why would the old cronies want to talk to us now? Satoru asked, tilting his head as he and Naruto got up from their positions. It's kind of strange that they would want to meet us now instead of earlier. I mean, we've already gotten so much in our training, you'd think the Foggies would be happy with that, Naruto added, squinting his eyes in an attempt to find an answer. Satoru simply shrugged and shook his head. Naruto nodded in accord and said, who knows, maybe they forgot that we started our training because of dementia, you know, because they're hella old. Satoru smiled. All right, now you two, that's enough joking around, go change quickly so we can leave, Kushina remarked, shooing the two boys away as they hurried up the stairs to change into more formal attire after giving them a warm look. After leaving the house, they started to travel the icy road that went to the main house of the clan. Satoru and Naruto were being children as they should be and hurled snowballs or short jabs at each other whenever they could. A dark-haired man with a black yukata fitting on his body and a cut running down the side of his lips passed them as they were playing, but Kushina just continued walking down the path, closing her eyes in laughter at their antics. The old geezers were talking incoherently about these Gojo prodigies. Aren't they? As he walked past Naruto and Satoru, he thought, I can see why they are afraid, though. My instincts went nuts when I walked by them. And it was true. It was as though his instincts told him to run at once, and it sent shivers down his spine. How could two children make him feel that way? How strong would they grow up to be? How powerful might they get in the future? Wait, why am I? He thought, a shiver running down his spine. Who are you? The man froze, taken aback by the question. He slowly turned to face the direction the voice was calling from, and his eyes widened as he realized why his body had suddenly become cold. They were watching him, mind, body, and soul standing watchfully for the slightest movement, their eyes piercing through him, judging him in ways he could never comprehend. A crushing pressure had fallen on him, and Satoru's gaze made eye contact with his own. He remained silently, keeping his gaze fixed on the white-haired Gojo while he examined him. After drawing sufficient conclusions, he tore his gaze away from him and made eye contact with Naruto, and he felt it. Not the same pressure Satoru displayed, but something far more intense, something far more terrifying, all natural, unrestrained. Madness. Warning, if you do not have a strong mind or a strong stomach, do not read the following paragraph as it is packed with gore and horrid implications. Skip this entirely if you are not comfortable, read at your own discretion. The black-haired man watched as he saw every nightmare he could imagine, every horror he could imagine, murder after murder, destruction after destruction. Torture among more torture, death rewarded with more death, men stabbed in the chest, women devoured by bears, children torn apart by every limb they owned, a man devouring his family while they were still alive, a woman having sex with a man who piqued her interest before slowly killing him, and children exploited by their parents due to their sick, twisted depravity. Every scream, every detail, every feeling, their emotions, their pain, everything. He watched flames devour the world as every living thing descended into madness and depravity, slaughtering one another with their hands, feet, and teeth, all under the watchful, blazing eye in the sky, shining its malevolent amber hues down in sadistic glee. The unpleasant parts are over. You can continue reading. First, he saw all of this in a single second, saw actual lunacy for a single second, and was eternally altered as a result, mind and soul shattered, destroyed. As soon as his eyes locked with the blonde Gojo's, he quickly turned away and fled in fear. He probably destroyed his psyche instantly with that second of eye contact. Naruto just blinked, realized why the strange black-haired man ran, and felt a little guilty. His brother must have realized it too, because Satoru put a reassuring hand on his shoulder, showing that he understood the blonde Gojo's thoughts and feelings. Unbeknownst to them, their mother was watching in silence from a distance, frowning as she looked at the man who was running away. "Why would the sorcerer killer of all people be here with my sons?" she asked. The curse, a grade 1 cursed spirit, had never felt such terror in its life. The feeling of terror and madness that seeped through its fragile mind as it looked at its prey was something it had never experienced before. "I have to escape," it thought, leaping past the unwary civilians as he fled, anywhere away from him. Run was all that the curse could think of. Its only thought as it ran through the streets, buildings, and alleys was to get away from the man who was hunting him. As it ran, it started to hope that perhaps, just possibly, he had escaped his assailant and that it had survived to see another day. Its response was a sharp amber spear that pierced through the curse's shoulder with cackling energy and malignancy. Madness seeped into the creature's brain as it screamed in agony and horror. It started running again right away, but it was much slower and more confused by the way it stumbled and crashed through buildings. It continued running until he hit something and knocked it to the ground, and as it stared at the wall in front of it, fear gripped it. "No" was the last word it said as it tried to avoid death. A shadow started to develop as it approached the curse, its serene stare penetrating the darkness that surrounded it. Footsteps filled the alley as the clacking of boots touched the floor it stood on. Its slow and calm pace teased the spirit as it peered down the alley with horror in its heart. Huddled tightly together in the alley's corner, the curse shuddered in fear, never taking its eyes off the man in front of him, not even breathing to avoid making noise. As the man entered the area of the curse, the darkness parted. He was wearing black combat boots and black military cargo pants of the same color around his legs. He was wearing a tight-fitting black skin shirt with a burnt orange mixed black leather jacket on top of it. He had a green stone necklace around his neck and black combat gloves with metal braces on the back of his hands. A black headband with an orange flame emblem in the center was secured neatly around his forehead. His face was a vivid shade of tan with 3 whisker marks attached. His eyes were a steely amber that spoke unimaginable horrors to anybody who dared to look into them. "And I have come to kill you," he said with a smirk, his voice a little husky as his half-lidded eyes wandered the alley. "I know you're here, spirit." He rushed at the cowering form, enjoying the sensation of its frenzied state, and the spirit attempted to defend itself by swiping a claw at the man's face, but it hit nothing. The curse screamed in terror as the man's gaze fell upon it, tears streaming down its face. The man continued to stare at him, his calm smile turning into a twisted grin as he felt his blood pump with energy. The creature looked in horror at its hand, or what was left of it, and it broke apart when the guy's body struck it. The man simply smiled and raised one hand to construct a finger pistol that was pointed at the head of the cursed spirit while putting the other in his pocket. As he charged chaos energy at his fingertips, he said, "Take this to the afterlife with ya," his amber eyes melding with the spirit's. "Fell by Naruto Gojo, the one shunned by heaven," he said. The spirit's hand disintegrated in the first place because Naruto taught him how to use the reverse curse technique in exchange for Satoru's assistance in creating his own barrier technique. Naruto blasted it, disintegrating its head instantly as the rest of the body quickly followed suit. He just stared apathetically, disappointed at the lack of resistance the cursed spirit gave him. He knew he was strong, the strongest in fact, and only his brother challenged him. He shook his head and said, "Oh well," heading out of the alleyway and into the busy city streets. "Wonder if they'll like ramen for lunch today? Bah, of course they would." Ramen is the food of the gods. He thought, he's got to meet up with the others after all. Something about a haunted mansion. As she gazed anxiously at the deserted house in front of her, a girl wearing a Miko dress asked the girl next to her, teeth shaking, "May, are you sure we have to be here?" "Why, of course, Yudahime-chan," said May, the other woman. "We were paid quite the sum to exorcise the curse here," Yudahime said, looking at her boss in fear. Damn it, she didn't want to go in. Why did she have to exorcise this creature? She should have been training even if she was only in 3rd grade. Ghost hunting in a haunted house is not allowed. Gulping, she braced herself and prepared herself with a flashlight as she entered the house. She wandered around, terrified by the smallest noises that kept bouncing around the house. Entering a room, Yudahime heard the faintest squeaking sounds coming from beneath the table. She knew she had to investigate the sound, so she carefully walked down the hallway, lowering herself to see what was underneath the table. And when she did, May stood there, as usual, laughing at her per-charge's fear as Yudahime screamed as she saw the most horrifyingly hideous curse she had ever had the misfortune of seeing in her life. She ran as quickly as she could, stumbling and fumbling out of the door, slamming it behind her as she heard and felt the door thump continuously behind her. She began by clapping her hands together and saying, "Congratulations! You found yourself a mouse. Now, why don't you continue your search?" May jumped out of the window, landed outside the house, and left. With no other option, Cherryheim continued down the main hallway, more vigilant than before, her red face huffing and puffing at May's remark, knowing full well that she was making fun of her. She walked through the hallway once more and heard the sound of things falling apart. She turned and saw the rooms behind her get heaved up into the sky and booked it. She screamed as the floor beneath her collapsed, sending her free falling onto the ground with debris following suit. Time passed as she moved through the abandoned house, screaming occasionally when she encountered horrors that even the eyes of frenzy would be distressed at knowing. "No, I am not crying. Respect your seniors," she started to say, "Satoru Gujuo. You listen here, I never needed any of your iron dash," but was interrupted when a huge, intimidating-looking curse appeared on the ground behind her. The big mushroom was trapped in its jaws as it attempted to get away when a giant fish suddenly erupted from the earth underneath it. Sugurageto walked down the steps that remained on the floor as the Gojo snickered, Now, Satoru, no need to be so harsh on her, it's her first mission after all." This time, a strange guy joined the fight, slouching over with his hands in his pockets and hair that resembled a deformed pineapple. May pondered, my, I wonder, would you save me if I was in trouble? I'd very much like that, as he emerged on the other side of the tunnel that Satoru had dug. He merely laughed. With a mischievous smile, Gojo side-eyed Iori and continued, "But why would I do that, May? You're strong. Unlike you, Yudahime." Yudahime glared at him, now truly angry. Why couldn't he show respect for his elders? The Miko woman was ecstatic when someone shouted out, "Yudahime-senpai, are you all right?" She knew the voice. "SOOKKOO," she said as she rushed in the direction of the woman described before. "Oh, thank you, Shoko. Please, control your stupid teammate," she cried into her shoulder as tears streamed down her cheeks. Observe the outraged expression on the face of that foolish colleague. "That's nice and all, but I feel like you guys are missing someone," May said, laughing at the scene. Yudahime glanced up from Shoko's shoulder and around. She said, "That's right. Where's Naruto?" with wide eyes as she searched for the notorious member of their group. Although she had never met him in person, she had heard a lot of rumors about him, a terrifying demon who could wipe out a person's mind with a single look and a gaze so terrifying that even special grade curses would shudder and submit. She wanted to meet the man who could bring about so much notoriety in the Jujutsu world. Scratching his cheek, Satoru said, "Naruto, he's right here, ER." Boom! Satoru fell into the ground, creating a trench as someone rode on top of him, and a tremendous crash broke out between the bunch. A booming voice, its figure wiping itself off, cried out from behind the smoke, "Ha ha, holy shit, that was fun. Hey everyone, long time no see." Everyone cried in confusion. Naruto? They couldn't really be blamed, as anyone would if they witnessed someone kill their sibling by falling out of the sky. Geto sighed and bowed his head low, too accustomed to the twins' pranks from their childhood. "Hi Naruto," Shoko said as she approached him. "How was your mission?" she asked. Naruto cracked a grin. "It was fun. I had to kill a grade 1 cursed spirit again. It was pretty fast. So it was one of my more entertaining hunts I've been on so far. Haven't been seeing any special grades lately though. That's amazing. Hopefully we can start joining you on your hunts soon." "I'm sure you will in no time, Shoko-chan." Suguru approached Satoru's corpse, which was still steaming from the meteoric impact it had suffered, as they started talking, and asked, "So how long are you going to sit there?" Satoru leapt to his feet in a great heave, his face covered in enormous tick marks. Instead of reacting to the cursed spirit manipulation user, he focused on his twin's form. A fist pierced Naruto's head as he was still talking, sending him backward and into the stone wall next to him. Satoru growled, his fist trembling from its extended posture, to land on my body. "Who the do you think you are?" Naruto said, hurrying to butt with his brother. "I'm your better. That's who, you dumbass monkey. You wanna go, yokehead? I'll send your ass flying again, shitty geezer." As lightning struck between their eyes, they both snarled. Between the twins and their teammates, Yutaheim screamed, wait it," and shook her head violently. "How the did he just get here?" "Well, you see, I had finished my mission early, so I decided to come to you guys," Naruto began, releasing his grip on Satoru and turning to face the bewildered Miko woman. "So I teleported here and brought some food with me," he said as everyone blinked, only now realizing the strange situation they had been in. Yutaheim experiences strange disorientation and shock, critical injury is inflicted, and death occurs. Steam was visible from the red-faced woman, who was trying desperately to keep herself from snapping at the blonde threat because she suspected he was as terrible as his brother, something she did not want to think was possible. "Who are you anyways?" Naruto asked, tilting his head. Yutaheim, still in shock, didn't think about the question at first, but she swiftly caught herself when it did. She bowed to her superior in a perfect 90-degree angle, saying, "I am Yutaheim Iori. An honor to meet you, sir." She wanted to make a good first impression, so she just chalked it up to her nervousness at meeting someone with such a villainous aura, someone who could literally blow her mind away in a split second. He was known as the man who fell from heaven for a reason. After all, the opposite of Satoru Gojo, the man who was honored by heaven. "No need for formality, Yutaheim-san. I hope we can get along in the future as colleagues and friends," said the fallen one, laughing and rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Yutaheim looked up, her eyes wide with excitement and adrenaline at the way he was addressing her. To call Naruto, the fallen one, a friend could be considered a huge honor. There's nothing like knowing Satoru, a loud buffoon better suited for the role of a monkey. She was about to reply when Satoru interrupted, gazing respectfully and admiringly into Naruto's eyes, which were hidden behind orange sunglasses. When Satoru drove up next Naruto, he sneered, "Why would you want to be friends with someone like her, bro? She's weak as, you know," with his hands over his head. "Don't matter if she weak, she got potential to be strong. I know you seen it for yourself, dude." "Ah? I don't see anything but weak shit and no future." Iori was once again like a boiling teapot due to the amount of steam emanating from her furious face, but Shoko swiftly rescued her, saying, "All right, I think that's enough insulting Yutaheim, Satoru." Mei determined that this was the ideal opportunity to add a comment of her own. "Did you guys happen to retrieve the item you guys were sent to grab?" Their wide-eyed, deer in the headlights appearance was sufficient response when she addressed Satoru, Shoko, and Sugiru's objective. When they returned to Tokyo Jujutsu Tech, everyone received praise, rewards, or reprimands based on their individual roles. "Alright, who was the one that screwed up the mission?" Principal Yaga asked, rubbing the bridge of his nose with his thumb and middle finger while glaring down at a particular trio. "Satoru. Satoru. Racism." BMB Satoru was instantly squashed and reduced to the size of a distorted chibi plush toy by Yaga's enraged fist, which smashed into his noggin. "I don't even know why I try," Yaga moaned, turning away from the trio and leaving the gym. "I'll be back if anything comes up. Don't cause any trouble again, you brats." As Naruto walked towards them with his hands in his pockets, he whistled as he saw Satoru's bump resting on his head. "Principal Yaga must have really let one on ya, huh bro?" Naruto said, "You look like you one step away from getting knocked a few pegs low, looking pathetic." "Really," he said. It was an amusing sight, especially for Yutaheim, who happened to enter with Naruto after waiting outside. "Yeah, well, you too," Satoru said, flipping him the bird as he was still crushed. Satoru instantly regained his composure, glaring at the two people who were making fun of him and promising to repay them twice. Nevertheless, he let go of his resentment with a frustrated sigh and held the basketball close to him while he gazed glumly at the ground. Everyone halted their activities and stared at the white-haired teenager with conflicted expressions. "You know," Satoru began, "why is it that we have to protect the non-jujutsu sorcerers? Without them, the world wouldn't be full of curses, would it?" Naruto smacked his head right away, saying, "Because they can't protect themselves, idiot." Satoru woke up from his depressed mood and touched the back of his head in agony. "Yeah, you're right." The Bambi Principal Yaga smashed through the doors he had been using to enter, charging up to Satoru and his group while glaring at them. "You guys just got assigned a new mission. You are to guard the star plasma vessel until the time of emergence with Tengen-sama," Yaga stated, pointing to Naruto. "Satoru, the higher-ups have ordered you guys to do so. Q plans to target her for assassination. So they need you guys to protect her at all costs." As he left the wide-eyed teenagers in the gym, he quickly pivoted on his heel and strode out the door, shutting it behind him. A hush fell over the four teenagers as they all returned to their current state of being. Shoko was the first to do so. Shoko turned to face her companions and addressed the clear directive that was given to them, saying, "This is a first." Satoru jerked his head in a panic at the sound of her voice, saying, "Are you kidding me? Why do we gotta babysit some brat?" "It's fine, Satoru. This mission shouldn't be too hard. It's only protecting a girl from a bunch of losers, you know," Naruto stated as he approached the entrance. "I wonder who the star plasma vessel is, though. You know your mission, correct?" Yeah, I got it. Just kill a girl and be done with it, right?" "Yes, however it seems like the vessel will be having the twin prodigies guarding her. It won't be as easy as you think." "The geniuses that the Gojo clan won't stop bragging about?" "Yes, Satoru Gojo, the one honored by heaven, and Naruto Gojo, the one who fell from the heavens. Be especially wary of the fallen one, Toji. He is not one to be taken lightly on any day, especially if you are going to inevitably fight him." "Don't I know it?" Naruto asked the throng, which included Iori Yutaheim, Yeri Shoko, Suguru Geto, and Satoru Gojo. "So, what's the deal with this vessel?" They all turned to face him with the most deadpan expression possible. "What? It's a legitimate question," Naruto said. Since Satoru was the only one brave enough to reply, he did it in the way that a Gojo would typically do. "Are you Ed in the head, dude? Don't you know what the star plasma vessel is?" The non-Gojos gave the twins a wide berth as Naruto leaned into Satoru's sitting form. "You got any of that dumbass, huh?" Naruto said, taking a deep breath to avoid hitting his twin, the tick marks on his face gradually disappearing. That's not what I meant, dumbass. I meant, do we have any information about Tingen's new vessel? We actually do have information on the vessel, Naruto. Her name is Riko Amanai, who's 14 years old and goes to Ranchoka Girls Academy. Geto joked before Satoru could respond. Well, come on then, Naruto beckoned to Satoru and Suguru. We don't want to miss our meeting with this Amanai girl. Yutaheim and Shoko, who remained silent during the talk, chose to join him as Naruto nodded and moved out of the Limitless user's face to head for the gym's exit. The two special grades that were left behind shook their heads as Naruto left. Suguru sighed as he followed them, shaking his head like a mother once more. Honestly, that guy is as spontaneous as ever. We have a week before we're supposed to meet her, he said. Satoru simply said, I'm so going to kick his ass after this. With an angry smile, it was time to meet the star plasma vessel after a week filled with arguments caused by the two Gojo's incessant arguing. The twins walked side by side, each holding a drink while they spoke to each other. As he strolled with his brother, Satoru sipped his cola and stated, So, you think there's gonna be any strong enemies we'll have to fight? I don't want this to be too boring, you know? He nodded. Well, I heard recently that Q is trying to get their hands on her, so I don't think we'll have a shortage of enemies to face at least, Naruto said in a bored voice. I don't really expect anything too difficult at the very least. Maybe a few first grades and a bunch of second grades, but definitely not special grades like us. If they're the only ones we'll have to worry about, then we shouldn't have any real problems, Satoru snorted. Yeah, I figured as much. Q isn't really stacked in powerhouses after all, even if they are considered one of the more powerful schools for Jujutsu, he said, crushing his empty can in his hand and throwing it aside as it somehow found its way into the trash can. Not unless they hire that sorcerer killer, we'd be in a bit of a pickle if that happened. May, what are the chances of that happening? That guy is ancient history compared to us. He's like 27, bro. Not even close to ancient in the least. Shut the up, I'm seriously about to kill you. The food dash. The brothers started fighting in the middle of the road, surrounded by a humorous dust cloud, and words were no longer spoken. If they hadn't been stopped, the fight would have continued for hours. The twin brothers were battling, yet they could still tell when danger had arrived since the presence was so obvious. The intruder remarked, So these are the legendary prodigies of the Gojo clan? I'm not impressed, feeling unimpressed by the appearance of the Gojo's blonde and white hair. The two were too preoccupied with their own analysis and behavior to even acknowledge him. In other words, how to increase the other Gojo's pain. Hey, they're not weak goobers, they only respond to threats. When the Q guy noticed that he was being disregarded, he developed tick marks all over his face and exclaimed, These bastards are ignoring me. Oh well, that just gives me time to prepare my strongest attack. I'll kill them with that, he said, quickly calming down after his teeth ground together and sparks flashed from the strength of it. He knew it wasn't wise to lose his cool against two special grade sorcerers who were hailed as prodigies throughout the Jujutsu globe. Continuing ignoring the Q member, Naruto and Satoru were continuing scraping it out of their humorous cloud of dust without really thinking about the issue. The Q guy attacked as hard as he could since he was tired of the two of them arguing. As thousands of blades rushed towards the prodigies, gates above the Q member opened, yelling, Go, Arsenal Heaven! The twins, at last realizing the danger, turned their horrified eyes to the approaching blades as they connected. He appeared to be filled with peace and tranquility, having attained nirvana and enlightenment. However, Suguru was simply bored because he had nothing better to do. He could have stared at the unconscious girl who was lying across from him, but that would be creepy, and Suguru isn't creepy. He was sitting on a chair, drinking some tea he had made, and watching the clouds move outside the room he was in. You won't get away with this. I swear you'll pay. You're not in any position to make threats like that, dude. I'd suggest you shut up before I get really annoyed, the curse manipulation user said with an irritated sigh, turning his bored and irritated gaze towards the speaker. Cuddled comfortably inside a cursed spirit that sat in the place of a wall, the person growled, more than frustrated with his opponent, "I swear to God, once I get out of here I'll kill you for sure," as he attempted to escape. The cursed spirit simply tightened its grip around him further, eliciting a pained yell from its prisoner. "You Q guys are seriously annoying, don't you ever know when to shut up?" Sigura sighed again and shook his head. "I've been sighing a lot lately, must be because of Naruto and Satoru, damn them." Silence. "When the boss finishes up with those two Gojos, you're going to be sorry. Yeah, our boss is the strongest there is. He'll deal with those two idiots real soon and come back to kill you and Tenjin's vessel. No one can beat the ace of Q." Geto exclaimed in alarm as he gazed at his captive with wide eyes. His prisoner smiled, realizing that he had captured the attention of the others. The Q guy kept laughing while shocked, wide-eyed eyes stared at him without making any noise until his captor finally spoke. "PFT ha 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 ha." Anger spread across the Q member's face as he yelled, "What the are you laughing about, you idiot? Don't you know your friends are dead?" The Q member blinked as his own laughter died and was replaced by Sugiru's. Suguru laughed uncontrollably, crashing on the couch and kicking his feet in laughter. "Ha, sorry, I just never heard of a joke that funny before," said Suguru, controlling his laughter. "You don't know just how scarily powerful those two are. It'd take your entire school just to get to one of them, and even then I'm probably underestimating them. Those two are no joke. They could kill just about anyone they want, me included." "Your boss is as good as dead," Geto said, leaning mockingly toward his captive. Suguru stopped talking to them when his phone rang and went to check on it. When he opened it, he saw a photo and smiled. "Hey, is this that boss you were talking about?" As he brought the phone back, he simply smiled while glancing at the selfie of Naruto and Satoru smiling with the Q boss's severed head between them. Yes, it was graphic and unsettling, but that's what happens when you try to murder two of Japan's most powerful sorcerers. "I love being right." Sugura watched as the Q grunt's form wriggled through his spirit's throat in a desperate attempt to escape as it traveled slowly into the belly and vanished. And he could only whistle in fascination as indentations made themselves prominent on the curse's belly every few seconds. He wasn't the least bit alarmed by this, even as he heard the poor man's screams being digested inside the curse's stomach. "Anyway, seeing as your boss is dead now, why don't I help you reunite with him?" The Q grunt didn't even get a chance to say anything before he was strangled by the cursed spirit. He's killed many curses and sorcerers in this way he had to in order to survive some of his missions. He ignored the situation and summoned his spirit, which sank back into his shadow. As he finished, the doors slammed open, revealing Naruto and Satoru beaming broadly with one of their boots in the air. Satoru raised his fist up and exclaimed, "A WWW, yeah, that was awesome. Totally nailed that entrance." But his brother cuffed him on the back of the head. Naruto's head grew enormous as fire filled his eyes, and he roared, "You idiot! You just totally ruined our badass entrance like that." His sunglasses covered his eyes, but that isn't the point. With lightning blazing between their eyes, the white-haired teenager leaped back up and started arguing with his blonde sibling. "Why'd you go smacking me, you dandelion? You Angie ruined my cool entrance, you damn shitty geezer." "Who the you calling a geezer, you stupid whisker-faced monkey?" "I'm calling you a geezer, you stupid gremlin-looking twig ant. It's impossible for you two to just not fight each other, is it?" Sugura groaned angrily once more. "I'm proven right once again," as he saw the twins start fighting again. "Okay, knock it off, both of you. We have the vessel right here," he said rhetorically. Suguru blinked owlishly when the twins teleported exactly where he was pointing. He quickly turned around and saw the prodigies crouching close to the female, prodding her face like small children. "Hey, this is her, right?" Yeah, she's so tiny. And squishy. Her face is squishy. Nay, should we? Yeah, we definitely should. Suguru slapped his forehead as Sharpies materialized in front of the two naive teenagers as their innocent smiles turned to cunning plans. Hey, you squiggle there, I've got this side covered. Okay. Okay, hee, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's fabulous. It's youthful. Too far, dude. Everyone's spines tingled as they understood the cursed term that the blonde had used. They chose to outlaw it following a particular incident. Anyways, let's check up on her now, yeah? Naruto said, clearing his throat, his face blanched with shock and scarlet with shame as he tried to defuse the situation. He leaned down and lifted up the unconscious girl bridal style, pressing his face deep into hers to make sure she was okay. The girl's closed eyes squinted and wriggled, alerting the other three that she was going to wake up. When she opened her eyes fully, Naruto's face was the first thing she noticed. Bam! Kaya! As she leaped out of Naruto's grasp, her hand raced towards his face and slapped it, ignoring the poor boy's expression as his cheek rippled in slow motion. Her arms shot straight into the air as she assumed a position, saying, "Who are you people? If you think you can kill me, don't expect it to be easy." Suguru put a hand on Naruto's shoulder in an attempt to appease the young girl whose face was covered in tick marks and ready to beat her up. Satoru laughing behind them didn't help the situation at all. Now, no need to be so violent. We're not the ones who attacked you. We just want to help, Suguru said. Shut up. I know you're going to attack me. His stupid spiky hair gives you away. And you? What's with your bang? They look stupid and creepy. When the elevator door opened, she saw Korwa, a young woman dressed like a maid, perched atop a frog. It was not a pleasant sight. My lady, help me, Korwa. These bastards are torturing me. Save me. This is child abuse. Satoru was seen teleporting around them while recording the entire scene with a foolish smile on his face. Riko was stretched like a chio, her legs overlapping each other as Suguru pulled on them, her back to the floor, and her arms twisting on themselves as Naruto pulled on them as well. When Kurwa yelled, "Okay, that's enough you two," put Riko down, the two blank-faced tormentors stopped, turning her around and letting her face plant into the ground. Still shaking from the torment she had inflicted on herself, Riko moaned as she rose from the floor on wobbly arms. "Kurwa, I'm so happy to see you," she said as she ran into her friend's arms and smiled at her maid. "I'm glad to see you too, but I seem to have found you in an interesting situation here," Korwa said with a giggle as she gave Riko a hug in return. Riko glanced up at her, her eyes unseen but for the scarab behind them. The expressions of Naruto, Suguru, and Satoru changed to a tick mark when she said, "That's right. These guys are trying to kill me." There didn't seem to be any logic in her. "You've got it wrong, Riko. These men are our allies. They came here to protect you." Naruto used this as a chance to speak out as Riko's eyes widened as she absorbed this. "I'm glad you finally understand, Skinny Legs. We're here to protect you until your mergence with Tengen. You know, I thought that since you went to an all-girls prim and proper school you'd be a whole lot more mindful and demure than you were right now. But I guess I was proven wrong. You're just not worth the effort of being proper, pervy dandelion." Riko stopped, saying, "Listen up." Satoru and Suguru grabbed hold of Naruto to stop him from killing the child Aminai, but she leaped upon the frog-looking curse and went on. "You seem to be confusing mergence with death, so let me enlighten you. If I'm merging with Tengen, then that means that I am also Tengen, just as I am Tengen. Tengen is also me. By that definition, when we merge together, I will still be alive through my will with Tengen, because I am Tengen, just as Tengen is me. You understand? You changed your home screen picture? Yeah, isn't she super hot? She a baddie if I ever saw one." Riko angrily called out to the three men, listening, but all they could do was raise an eyebrow in mockery at her. Naruto mockingly remarked, "You must not be popular at school, huh?" Suguru echoed Naruto's tone when he responded, "Definitely not. At least not with that attitude. With his trademark goofy smile, Satoru joked, "Wow, aren't you a fiery hothead? What, you jealous that you ain't on my home screen or something? I'll have you know I'm super popular at my school," Riko hissed at them. There was a silence. Despite her maid's desires, Riko ran for the elevator and said, "Wait, Sko. Och, that's right. Kurwa, we need to go. I have to get to school." She begged, fear gripping her at the prospect of what would occur. "My lady, must you? You were just attacked, surely you can skip school for today." Naruto agreed with the maid. "Yeah, it'd be so much safer to take you back to Jujutsu Tech so we can protect you better," and two sets of heads nodded simultaneously behind them. To her relief, Riko killed that relief. With no room for debate, she walked into the elevator with a reluctant Kurwa following her quickly. "By now, thanks for protecting me," she said. "No, I must go to school. It would not look good on my record if a girl as academically astounding as myself were to miss it. Now come on, Kurwa, we've got to hurry or else I'll be late." Because of their slouched postures and depressing demeanor, Naruto, Satoru, and Suguru stood there looking like the Three Stooges. Did we seriously get bitched by a 14-year-old brat? Satoru was the first to emerge from the daze. "Huh, what even is life?" he asked, amid nods from everyone else. Using Geto's dragon curse, the other two broke out of their dummy state and went outside. As they took in the scenery and the breeze, silence fell around them. At last, one of them spoke. "So, should we just go along with her wish? She is going to die soon, isn't she?" Naruto responded, "I think it's okay. I mean, it's not like we can't sense her. I think it'd be fine to let her enjoy her last few days to truly be alive," Suguru said. "All right, since we're in agreement, we should split up. Naruto and I will comb the city while you guard Aminai. Sounds good?" Gojo said, rapidly formulating a plan to best protect Aminai. Naruto and Suguru nodded. "Since Satoru and I can teleport, we'll be able to back you up the moment you need it. Here, take this talisman. It'll allow us to make an anchor point for us to teleport to easier," Naruto said, passing a talisman to Suguru, who accepted it before putting it in his pocket. Suguru stated, receiving nods from his two pals, "Thanks, let's split up here then. I'll make my way over to Riko while you two comb different parts of the city." Naruto turned to face his brother and said, "I'll take care of the forest, you get the city, Satoru." "Got it." Suguru ran to where he could feel Riko's cursed energy, and the twin Gojos sprang off the flying dragon without saying another word. With his flames, Naruto flew to the forest, carrying with them the characteristic frenzy that characterized his technique. He landed with a loud boom, then started to walk without paying any attention to the destroyed life around him. He stretched his senses as far as he could, absorbing every tiny detail that came into his vision as he went. Determined to gain something from this side mission, Naruto ran quickly, arriving at the source of the cursed energy in less than a minute after walking for what seemed like hours until something finally caught his attention. He smiled as he pursued the source of the abundance of cursed energy. A temple. Why would a shrine be here in the middle of nowhere? Naruto asked bewilderedly. Obviously, something or someone important is in there, but what? Curious, Naruto opened the temple's doors and entered. He then proceeded to walk around, removing his sunglasses and using his frenzied barrier to shield himself from any potential attackers. Nothing is really standing out right now, Naruto thought, scanning the space with keen amber eyes. So why does it feel like I'm missing something? He became frustrated as he searched the room for any indications of what was inside the temple. 30 minutes of searching later, an agitated Naruto was spotted making his way back to the door. Was this entire thing a damn waste of time? He snarled, and as he was ready to go, his eyes spied something strange. Wait a minute, is that? It is. When he noticed a trail of negative energy, Naruto immediately pursued it until he reached a wall. Naruto groaned and put his palm on the wall, saying, "This is so cliché." The wall turned to the side as he had anticipated, giving him access to the enigmatic hallway. "Welp, on we go," he said. "This is way too interesting to care about that," the Eternal Chaos user said, disregarding the wall closing behind him as he entered. He continued to follow the stream of negative energy with excitement, and after a few minutes, he entered an empty room with a cage at the other end. Before he could finish thinking, the cage in front of him opened, and Naruto heard growling coming from inside. He jumped back and braced himself for fight, thinking, "Shit, I knew something was fishy with this damn place." Analyzing the open cage before him, Naruto waited for whatever kind of beast might be within to emerge and attack him. Its enormous belly rippled with every step, and its enormous feet made indentations in the ground it walked on. On its stomach, a giant mouth opened hungrily, its tongue flailing in excitement. Its head was a hideous sight, with its enormous oval face covered in acne and indentations, and its enormous black beady eyes staring into his own. Its mouth opened and laughed, revealing thousands upon thousands of worm-like objects inside. Gashes were visible, but they seemed to be all too natural on the creature. "What the?" Naruto muttered in fear as he took in the terrifying scene in front of him. He immediately braced himself, but when the monster turned to face him, with a squeaky, scratchy voice akin to a cat on a chalkboard and a guttural sound beneath it, it intoned, "You, name." It sounded incorrect. "Naruto, what's it to you?" the sorcerer asked, gritting his teeth. His only goal was to destroy the monstrosity before him. The beast sluggishly responded, "Hungry. Naruto. Food." Naruto's eyes widened as he leaped to his right and saw a tentacle crash into the spot where he had been. He turned back to face his attacker immediately after noticing that the ground was covered in what appeared to be poison. Tentacles burst forth from its back, all rushing towards Naruto in an attempt to skewer him. He dodged and ducked, watching as the tentacles moved and how they were eviscerated when they came into contact with his barrier. He quickly calculated what would happen if he did not want to take the chance of getting hit. "Name, Nurgle. D. I'll ing kill you, you ing ugly ass bitch." Naruto jumped at Nurgle, ignoring the fact that the tentacles were still evaporating, much to Nurgle's dismay. "Flare." Naruto yelled, slamming his fists coated in flames into Nurgle's stomach. His stomach opened up, releasing a massive cloud of green mist that Naruto did not want to experience. He quickly flashed away with a chaos control, watching as the debris in the space he had been occupying began to gain spores and rot. Nurgle technique Plague Lord, make Nurgle sick everything. Naruto narrowed his eyes and said, "I can't let that hit me then." He jumped out of the way of a tentacle and said, "If he's able to plague everything, then that could mean he could also plague my frenzied barrier, which would in turn affect me. Better to play it safe and keep it off then." He ran across the wall as blasts of disease followed him. "I can't let this fight last too long either, or else there'd be nowhere else to run, and I won't risk using reverse curse technique on it if I don't have to." He rushed up to the enormous beast and leaped far over it. His palm raised as he grabbed hold of the amber spear of energy that materialized inside it. Chaos Spear, he threw the strike at Nurgle before he was struck by a tentacle, once more suffering from the attack's never-ending wellspring of insanity. Nurgle shouted in pain as the cackling spear of negative energy penetrated him. "Damn you!" Green blobs exploded from Nurgle's stomach, all of them aimed at Naruto. He flashed everywhere as the waves of disease swept across the room. "Shit!" cried Naruto, nearly struck by one of the disease's mist strands, before teleporting to a different wall that was plague-free. "You slippery meal. Nurgle enjoy eating you." Nurgle snarled, lifting all of his tentacles before slamming them to the ground. The ground shattered, sending both of them tumbling to a much larger room than the previous one. Now die, Nergal smiled with a hint of madness. If Naruto hadn't flown up with his fire, the green liquid that soon filled the new space would have reached his knees. All right, let's play, Naruto said as he charged at Nergal, drop-kicking his face and slamming his flame-covered shoes into it. Nergal swiftly launched a tentacle attack, but Naruto's frenzied barrier, which he had once again created, burned it. Shit. Fortunately, that tentacle was free of plague, else I would have been Ed. Take this, you ugly bastard. KS Blast. Naruto teleported up to Nergal's face, making sure he was in direct line of fire in case of a counterattack. Chaotic energy exploded from his body, destroying almost everything in the room. Before the agonized Nergal could recover, he punched him in the nose, coating his fist in his frenzied flames to maximize the damage. There was a crunch as he enjoyed the sensation of his fist digging into the front of his enemy's nose. It was euphoric, but Naruto didn't anticipate seeing green mist and blood fly out and land on his arm, which made him panic and back off, saying, "OH?" He was going to use RCT to heal himself when he saw that his fist, which was covered in flames, showed no symptoms of illness while his arm was rapidly starting to deteriorate and turn ill. He thought, wait a minute, does the plague not affect my flames? He smiled at the idea and immediately tested his assumption by setting his body on fire with the frenzied flames. After a little application of RCT, he saw the disease burn away and his arm appear healthy. Oh, this is gonna be fun. As he charged with fresh energy toward the special grade cursed spirit, Naruto flashed his entire body, covering it in the raging flames. He screamed as he rained blow after strike on Nergal, "You're going to die now, you fat shit." Nergal yelled in pain as his head was tormented by streams of madness and a flaming flurry of fists that continued hitting him. After what felt like hours but was actually only a minute, Nergal's mind finally broke. It cried out, "Stop! Stop hurting Nergal!" Naruto stopped his attack and raised an eyebrow at the frightened ghost, saying, "There's no way he went crazy that fast, is there? If it was giving him the chance to kill it, why should he waste it?" Naruto simply shrugged. When Naruto got to the top of the room, he gathered all the flames he could muster and pushed them forward. The flames engulfed Nergal as it screamed in agony and fear, but the screaming soon stopped and the flames went with it, leaving behind nothing but a blackened and scorched floor with ashes heaped on top of it. Oh, thank God. Naruto let out a groan as he soared back up to the room he had entered, marveling as the floor fixed itself once he got there. That was way harder than any other special grades I had to fight before, at least until I used my flames, Naruto said, as the wall next to him opened up to reveal a corridor once more. With nowhere else to go, he just walked through the hallway and prayed that he wouldn't encounter another beast like that. His prayers were fulfilled when he saw that there was no cage or monster in the chamber in front of him. Naruto jigged a little at that. Instead of the cage, a shrine that exuded hate and cursed energy was placed in the center of the room. Naruto approached it carefully and swiftly opened its small doors. His eyes startled when he saw what was inside the shrine, a finger. He said incredulously, "There's no way," as his hand reached out and grasped it. Before he could take any action, his surroundings changed. The gray, empty chamber was gone, replaced by a crimson pool surrounded by what appeared to be a rib cage. A voice said, "Who are you to touch my soul, human?" And Naruto turned to see a huge pile of bones in the middle of the bloody lake. A throne was sitting on top of the pile, and someone was sitting on it. "Well, are you going to answer?" Naruto asked. Naruto's eyes grew piercing as he raised his head to meet the bored eyes staring at him. Furious Amber's eyes met his with a vile crimson, and he enjoyed the sight of shock and agony that filled its eyes. "Hello, Sukuna." It was difficult for Sukuna, but he was constantly bombarded with images of a destroyed and burning world full of every atrocity humanity has ever known. As the legendary King of Curses stared down the Lord of Frenzy, also known as the Fallen One, both sides were unwilling to break the impasse because their pride prevented them from displaying even the slightest hint of fear. For even though he was the King of Curses, the vilest of the vile, there was one unbreakable truth about what he was witnessing. They greatly agitated him. When their impasse was finally resolved, Naruto gently looked away from Sukuna as he continued to take in his new surroundings. At last, he said, as he was jolted out of his daydream, Sukuna blinked and took a moment to process the words. So, I'm going to guess we're inside your innate domain, right? He frowned angrily. Sukuna responded, yes, this is my innate domain, resting his head on his fist and gazing down at the soul-invading creature who had so audacity to disturb him. Now answer my own question, human, why have you meddled with my soul? Sukuna asked him. No clue, I was just grabbing your finger from the shrine and I found myself here, Naruto shrugged, his half-lidded eyes staring nightmares into Sukuna's mind as he returned his look. Although Naruto was unsure of how he got into Sukuna's territory, he was aware that he needed to exercise caution in his actions because Sukuna was regarded as powerful in the Jujutsu world even with only one finger at his disposal, and he had no intention of discovering his true strength unless absolutely necessary. It seems to me that your soul is just really easy to meddle with, suck you are nuts. Naruto insulted, a defiant grin appearing on his face as he glared at the curse in front of him. Is your soul really so weak that I can just invade it without any intervention? He said, pointing out that it was a lie and that he was definitely going to discover it. Careful, human, one more word out of your filthy mouth and I'll kill you, Sukuna said, grimacing at him and gritting his teeth in an effort to control his mounting fury. Kill me? Bitch, please. You couldn't even kill your fellow rats, even if you tried with that measly amount of power. Naruto leaned back as a blade of what appeared to be wind cut through the area where his neck should have been. Naruto smiled in response, and before Sukuna could react, a beam of chaotic energy blasted into him. He roared in agony as the nightmare images he had seen earlier became too real for him to ignore, not even realizing that he was in the air and colliding with one of the surrounding ribs. You're weaker than I expected. After all the rumors I heard about you and how even one of your fingers could contend with a special grade, I am underwhelmed, Naruto said, leaning back again as a fist swung at him. Naruto flashed in front of him and leaned down at him mockingly, his hands still in his pockets as he looked at the fallen curse. Naruto calmly watched as Sukuna regained his bearings and stood up. Sukuna raced at him and swung his fist down at Naruto, saying, "You'll regret that, you brat." He didn't even try to counterattack, allowing the king to do an uppercut on him. Instead, he just dodged again. "Come on, Sukuna-chan, you can do it," he sneered, his delighted smile giving way to a crazed one as he kept avoiding Sukuna's blows. When he landed, he swiftly turned around and swung his fist where Naruto was, who once more leaned back and watched the fist sail past him. Said curse was not amused at all. He leaped at the amber-eyed boy, spinning with a leg raised as he attempted a spinning kick that did not connect. Naruto was having a great time. This was not like Nergal, who could attack him from the inside out with his illness and tower over him. This was different. It was simply too thrilling for him to not enjoy fighting a strong opponent who was also human, even if he was just playing with said powerful opponent. His thoughts were interrupted when he avoided a slash that was aimed at him. Once again, gigantic dismantles were sent in his direction, forcing Naruto to flash aside before he could even speak. He kept his hands in his pockets, not feeling the need to use them against his opponent, saying, "I'm gonna start fighting back for a bit. All this dodging is making me bored, Suki-chan." As he continued to slash away as he fired dismantle after dismantle against the blonde, seeing his opponent just keep flashing away from them. He was about to send another one when Naruto teleported directly in front of him, sending Sukuna flying from the impact. The king's arm swiftly tossed the leg aside and launched a dismantle at him as he flashed in front of Sukuna once more, raising his leg to strike him. Sukuna jumped back, watching closely to make sure Naruto wouldn't surprise him again. He didn't consider that the black-clad teen would stay behind the blood shower and run towards him instead, barely able to block a powerful drop kick that Naruto sent out. It wasn't allowed to land as it sailed past the blonde who dodged. In return, he flashed above Sukuna and launched an axe kick to the head, causing blood to blast into the air once more. By severing everything within his domain, he expressed his frustration at the way a teenager who was not even a quarter his age was thrashing him. Naruto responded by revealing his simple domain and fending off the attacks, swiftly recovering himself with his amazing RCT. Though he didn't let it overpower him, Sukuna growled angrily as he saw that none of his attacks were having any effect on the obnoxious blonde. Naruto flashed meters in front of him, perplexed as to why his opponent had stopped fighting him. Disappointed that his opponent seemed to have given up on him, he questioned patronizingly, "You done already? It hasn't even been 5 minutes. How are you already done? Come on, attack me. I can't believe I'm being forced to activate this within my own domain," Sukuna said, shaking his head. "This being my innate domain should have been enough to deal with a brat like you," he repeated to himself. "What's your name, brat?" Before responding to the surprising question posed to him, Naruto blinked. "It's Naruto, Naruto Gojo. Then rejoice, Naruto of the Gojo clan, you shall witness my greatness." As he saw his opponent join his hands, Naruto arched an eyebrow, his curiosity taking over once more. When Naruto realized what was about to happen, his eyes dilated with excitement and he swiftly used his simple domain to aid oppose what was about to happen. Ryoiki Tenkai. The words Fukumizushi were followed immediately by a burst of cursed energy that started to unite and build a shrine. Naruto's eyes were wide with wonder as he saw the fabled realm of the King of Curses, and he couldn't help but feel honored by this. In front of him was a massive bone shrine with horns on the roof and a head shaped like a human monster in front. It was raised on a massive stack of skulls, which added to its ominous appearance. "Be honored, brat. You forced me to use my domain, even if it's in its weaker state right now," Sukuna laughed. He was confident that he would win since, after all, he was the master of domain expansions and no one could do it better than him. This was the brat's downfall. Despite not being able to fully enjoy the fight, Naruto witnessed the very thing that made Ryam and Sukuna so feared during the Heian era. He remained silent, still enthralled by the abundance of cursed energy circling around him, and he was content with this. The Gojo eventually managed to escape his condition and chuckled. "I've got to admit, I am honored that you would release your domain for little ol' me. Even in your severely weakened state, you really are deserving of your title," Naruto stated as his laughter stopped. Sukuna laughed. "Any last words before you die, brat? I'll allow you that much. I didn't say I was beat, dumbass." "What?" Pulling his right hand from his pocket, Naruto raised it, balling it into a fist and lifting his middle and index fingers together. "You should brace yourself, King. You've never dealt with something like this." Ryoiki Tenkai. It felt strange to just be at ease and not do anything every second of the day after spending so much time with Naruto and his buddies that Satoru had no idea what to do without them. He was bored beyond belief and was powerless to stop it. "Damn it, I shouldn't have accepted this foolish scheme. How in the world am I expected to enjoy myself now?" Even though his job was reconnaissance, which was already dull, how could he have known it would be this dull? "I'm going to thrash Naruto for even bringing this up when I get my hands on him." He saw nothing particularly noteworthy, only the same old malls and clothes stores with absolutely no real content. He decided to accept his own dreadful fate of boredom and never have fun again. His phone started buzzing, which surprised him. He looked at it, and as he answered the call, a smile spread across his face. Now jumping along the sidewalk, he joyfully said, "Yo, Suguru, you have no idea how happy I am that you called. There's been literally nothing for me to do here. I was getting so bored." Over the phone, he heard someone laughing. "Yeah, I figured that you would be. You never really knew how to stay still, huh?" he said. Anyways, I think you should come here to Ranchoka's Girl Junior High. I've got my curses scouting the city. So I think it'd be better for you to help me guard Rico as well." "Oh my god, Yeez, I'll teleport over to you right away. You think I should call Naruto to come back as well?" "No, I don't have enough curses to have them scout the forest without leaving me defenseless myself. So let's leave Naruto to do his own scouting in the forest." "Sounds good, I'll be there right now." After hanging up, Satoru teleported to a location where he could feel Geto's cursed energy. "Yo," he said, clapping his hands as he saw his friend. "Holy shit, Satoru, you scared the shit out of me there," said Suguru, who jumped in surprise at the welcome and turned to find his white-haired friend smiling foolish at him. He put his palm on his chest and sighed in relief. The Infinity user grabbed the back of his head in shame and smiled sheepishly. "Yeah, sorry about that, I got a little too excited, he said, as he teleported to where he felt their tiny Rico's energy. Satoru nodded and let his friend use his shoulder. "It's fine, but we should probably hurry back to the assembly hall. We should always be near her at all times after all." Suguru laughed. "You am and I. Long time no see," exclaimed the two as they emerged from the teleportation and entered the enormous, ancient-looking edifice, pushing the doors open with enough force to almost knock it off its hinges. Everyone in the room jerked their heads in its direction as the loud bang sounded, their eyes growing as big as saucers as they blinked owlishly. Their eyes instantly fell on the white-haired teen, who had a hand out in front of him and a mischievous smile on his face. Everyone was perplexed, with the exception of one person, who responded differently from the others. "She looks really angry, boy." He was correct, she did appear irate and agitated. "G-G-G-G-G-G-G-G-G-O-. Who's this?" Everyone swooned at Gojo and squealed as they rushed around him. Only a small number of people stayed behind and chose to question Aminai instead. Rico, who is this hunk? How does he know you?" "Hes just my cousin." "Hey, is he single?" "How should I know?" As if he were some kind of beauty deity who had chosen to grace mankind with his presence, the hunk/cousin was hogging the limelight, posing extravagantly in front of the girls in a variety of stances and taking pleasure in their fervent cries. As the teacher moved down the room's aisle, there was a loud clap. Her eyes were closed and her voice was filled with disappointment. "That's quite enough, young ladies. We shouldn't be rude to our guests. It's unladylike to swarm against the young man and try to flirt with him. Seriously, you all should be ashamed of yourselves." The pupils bent their heads in embarrassment as they considered what they had done. The woman took advantage of her students' concern and hastily produced a pen and paper. She rapidly jotted down something and moved over to Satoru, passing the paper to him secretly and whispering to him. Her students became enraged when she whispered, "Here, it's my phone number and address. Hit me up later so you and I can have some fun. Okay? You don't want to be stuck with these immature brats, do you? How could you? You hypocrite." "Yeah? Don't be a homewrecker, sensei." "Filthy cougar. Hey, I'm a growing single woman. It shouldn't matter who I give my number to, so back OFF," was written as a tick mark on the elderly woman's face. "You skank. Traitor. Shut up. All of you." Satoru took advantage of the situation to snatch Rico away, heading straight for the door without a second's hesitation. He wasn't going to spend his day watching a group of girls fight over him. Rico stood dumbfounded as she watched the chaos unfold, her mind unable to comprehend the complete absurdity that was taking place in front of her. When he saw a sweaty Satoru and a catatonic Riko in his arms, he raised an eyebrow but simply shrugged and put the occurrence in his brain's stupid Gojo moment memory file. He then proceeded to Suguru, who had stayed behind to guard the entry. As they soared away from the school, he summoned his dragon curse and let his pals fly on his head. The uneasy silence that surrounded them, Suguru asked, glancing at his two companions, "All right, is somebody going to explain to me why you guys are the way you are right now?" "It's because of this stupid Twiggy Gojo, that's what," yelled Riko, panting in rage, just as Satoru was about to reply. "Hey, how was I dash? Ah, that makes so much more sense, thank you, Riko." A gloomy rain cloud formed above Satoru's head as he moped in grief as he was interrupted once more. Suguru chose to talk instead of even giving him the time of day. Suguru looked at both of them and said, "I'm sorry for what my idiot numbskull of a friend has put you through, Riko, but since you're out of school, I'll call Naruto to meet up with us." Riko nodded in agreement, and Satoru, who was still pouting, gave him the thumbs up. Suguru called Naruto, but there was silence. Suguru looked at his phone in bewilderment and said, That's strange. Naruto usually answers his phone. Why's he answering now?" He attempted 3 more attempts but received the same response. "Dunno, maybe he's asleep. He does love taking naps after all, and he is one of the heaviest sleepers I've ever met. I'm sure he's fine." Satoru shrugged his shoulders and nodded in acceptance. Suguru was well aware that Naruto was a deep sleeper, so it was perfectly reasonable for him to be asleep at this moment. He then put his phone back in his pocket. "All right, then I'll take us to get Korwa." With both hands in his pockets once more, Naruto stood there staring down at the frightened and burnt king with half-lidded eyes. He remained silent and watched as the haughty curse descended into crazed muttering, clinging to himself as his claws drew his own blood. He ought to have felt bad about this, for completely destroying his mind and soul. He experienced no emotions. No, that isn't it. Euphoric was the only emotion Naruto experienced as he basked in its embrace. He had never felt better before, experiencing the joy of triumph and the sublime ecstasy of a victorious conquest. Naruto was well aware that he would never grow tired of seeing his opponent writhe in psychotic terror and agony. He had known this since his first kill, and it only became easier. He walked slowly to the trembling Sukuna, who had curled into himself, and slammed his foot down on the fallen king's head, grinding it into the bloody lake. He said, "Oi, get up," in a tone that was icy and distant, not at all like his usual self. "I'm not done with you yet." Instead of listening, Sukuna whimpered and curled deeper inside himself. His once bright white robes were now blackened and charred, and there were holes in many places. His salmon-pink hair, which had spiked, was noticeably shorter now, with singe marks visible if one tried hard enough. His head was flat and his forehead was matted in an unappealing manner. His red eyes, which had once been filled with mockery and hate, were now wide with fear and insanity. "Honestly, this is pathetic. Have some more shame. Imbecile, you are the king of curses, not some damn child to be coddled. You spent 10 seconds in my domain, and it reduced you to this," said Naruto, sneering in contempt at the way the once mighty curse now cowers before him. "You were someone so dignified, so regal, and you can't handle even a little bit of trauma? You should count yourself lucky that I didn't decide to turn you into one of them. You would have been way worse if I did," he said, releasing the pink hair and kicking the terrified curse away from him. He also stopped grinding his foot on Sukuna's head in favor of squatting next to it and pulling it up from his hair, forcing him to look into Naruto's sanity-reducing amber eyes. As the sky darkened to its maximum, the lake of blood and bony surroundings slowly started to burn, with a massive amber flame forming above them. The lake then evaporated, exposing smoldering stone below, with stakes and crucifixions rising from it. As Naruto gave the fallen king one final speech, everything heated up. "I want you to remember this day, Ryaman Sukuna. Remember this feeling of defeat and hopelessness, this feeling of destruction. Know that I could have easily taken over your little innate domain as soon as I entered it, that I could have ended your miserable little life instantly, and I want you to know why I didn't, the reason why I spared you," Naruto said as he started to leave, moving deeper into the rapidly enclosing darkness. He paused and tipped his head back to gaze at Sukuna's shattered red eyes. As hundreds upon thousands of eyes opened in the darkness that engulfed Naruto, all of their amber colors staring at him with sadistic joy in them, Sukuna's eyes widened in sheer terror. As they all gazed at the broken king for the final time, the enormous flame in the sky showed a black hole in the middle of it. It's because there's no point in ending the life of a man who's already dead.